As had been expected, Elizabeth Warren has endorsed Hillary Clinton, and she appeared on the Rachel Maddow show to both speak approvingly of the former secretary and also continue her stream of extremely amusing attacks against Donald Trump. We're going to have videos of both of those, but first, here is the actual endorsement.
I understand that you intend to endorse Hillary Clinton tonight. I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I'm ready. I am ready in this fight and work my heart out for Hillary Clinton to become the next president of the United States and to make sure that Donald Trump never gets any place close to the White House.
His economic policies and the damage they could do to individual families, but also to the country at large. Something we've talked about recently, his comments about how he would think it would be good if the global economy collapsed so that we could get a good deal afterward. Those sorts of things. But again, this is the actual endorsement. People thought that we were being premature in talking about the reports that she would endorse her. Those reports have been proven to be true.
So normally, someone endorsing a candidate that's got more pledged delegates, super delegates, would be the least controversial thing on planet Earth. It's a Democratic senator endorsing the likely Democratic nominee. So what? Well, in this case, it's a little controversial, because a lot of Sanders people are upset, Sanders supporters are upset, because they're like, well, where was your endorsement when we needed you in the primaries? And in fact, Rachel Maddow asked about that. I want to go to that next clip, and then I want to show you some Sanders supporters that are not that happy, and then we'll adjudicate whether she's guilty or not. Okay, let's watch.
Why did you not endorse during the primary? What was your thinking during the primary, holding out when so many other Democratic senators, all the women Democratic senators, almost all of the men Democratic senators, got on board with Hillary Clinton?
I thought that the primary was really important, and it was an opportunity for Democrats to get out there and show this is what it means to be a Democrat. We got out there and pushed those issues forward, and we made sure that the American people saw the kind of thinking we have, the kind of energy we have, and what makes us very different from those guys on the other side.
What does that have to do with what the question was?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
Right.
I like Elizabeth Warren a lot. So, and we'll talk about, you know, if what she did was wrong or not. But that answer was nonsense. Okay, that didn't answer the question at all. The real reason she held out is because she's stuck between what I'm sure she perceived to be a rock and a hard place. The rock is the establishment, and they're saying, why aren't you endorsing Hillary Clinton? You're a Democratic senator. As even Rachel Maddow, she didn't scream it like I'm saying it, but she was like, all the female Democratic senators already endorsed Hillary Clinton, and then the men endorsed as well, but you know, why didn't you do it? So what you can't see out there at home is the enormous pressure in Washington for Elizabeth Warren to endorse Hillary Clinton, not Bernie Sanders during the primaries.
Why was the question not, considering the similarities in some of your policy objectives and your political philosophy generally, why didn't you endorse Bernie Sanders? Why
You would have gotten
not
the
the
same
question?
answer. You would
You
have,
probably
but
would
you're
have,
right.
but
That
why
question
was
is
it
more
framed
pointed.
as, why didn't you fall in line? She used a different metaphor. But
Yeah, that's actually, that framing is, I'm a little surprised by. Maybe I should be a lot surprised. But because, of course, the real question is, why didn't you endorse Bernie Sanders? Because you agree with him nearly 100% on policy issues. You've talked about the significant things that you disagree with Hillary Clinton on, including the position she changed on the bankruptcy bill because she was taking money from the bankers. I mean, you're the one who talked about that in the first place. So the question isn't, why didn't you support Hillary Clinton? Why didn't you support the candidate that you agree with far more? But people in the establishment, even Rachel, who I like a lot and who I think is really smart, they can't help it. When you're in New York and Washington, it's got to be Hillary. It's got to be Hillary. Why didn't you support Hillary earlier? They're not even thinking, why didn't you support Bernie Sanders?
But wasn't her lack of an endorsement during the primaries implicitly endorsing Bernie for just all the reasons that you've kind of indicated?
That's really interesting because it 100% depends on your perspective. The establishment perceived it as like, aren't you implicitly supporting Bernie Sanders because you should support Hillary Clinton?
Right.
Whereas the Bernie Sanders supporters saw it exactly the opposite. You obviously are aligned with Bernie Sanders. If you don't support Bernie Sanders, you're implicitly supporting Hillary Clinton.
I see. Wow.
And so that's why that's the hard place. The grassroots are clearly on Bernie Sanders' side, and they are far more pissed at her than I realized. Today, when I started talking about this online, there was a great wrath against Elizabeth Warren.
So I filmed a video about the prediction that she was going to endorse her, and I put that up on my personal channel, and a lot of people were saying things like, I've lost all my respect for her. I've lost my faith in her. I think that that's going a little bit too far. I haven't lost all my respect for her. She's done great things. You get credit for the things that you've done regardless of what else you've done. But it is extremely disappointing, even if only that it shows her to be a politician. That she probably expected the whole time, as most did, Hillary Clinton is going to end up winning this. If I'm going to pursue my goals, which are more in line with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, the only way I can do that is by waiting it out and then grabbing a hold of Hillary Clinton. That's pragmatism, and it might end up achieving her goals instead of going for Bernie Sanders, which might not have. But it's disappointing if what you see her as is some kind of idealistic warrior for the cause, which she apparently is not.
So Jimmy's going to weigh in here in a second. I get the sense that he's unhappy with her. Okay, and then I'll throw in my concluding remarks as well. But first, I want to give Nina Turner a chance. She's a Bernie Sanders surrogate, and she was not happy with the situation. Listen to what she said on TV.
It might be Elizabeth Warren. It might Senator Warren. Excuse me.
I was going to say, is it Senator Warren?
And it might not be. And the reason why I say that, because there are a lot of progressives, progressives that might be a little left to her, who feel as though she didn't get in this fight with Senator Sanders.
Thank you.
And Chairman, can I just say this? It's easy to attack Mr. Trump. I'm just going to say this, Rick, and I hope you agree with me. It's easy for Democrats to attack Mr. Trump. You don't get any brownie points from me and other progressives for getting into a Twitter war with Mr. Donald Trump. That's easy. But when the fight was hard for Senator Bernie Sanders, where was Senator Warren?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
Because they're going to attack me for saying this, but I'm a truth teller at this point. This is how I feel.
Damn, dropped the mic. Okay, so I tweeted about that and I said feelings caught. I don't mean that about Nina Turner. I mean it about Sanders supporters. Like, they caught some wrong feelings about Elizabeth Warren during this primary season. So to represent them, Jimmy Dore, go.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing not to run yourself, right, because you're afraid of the political machine that is Hillary Clinton. And that's why nobody got in, because everybody was afraid. That's why it was up to Bernie Sanders to do this, to try to save our goddamn country by saving the goddamn Democratic Party first. So if you're not going to jump in and run anyway, when all the progressives in the party want you to, at least support the guy who does. At least when the guy does and sticks his neck out, because you know what the fuck was going to happen to him, and you saw what they were doing to him. You saw what they were doing to him over Nevada, over Las Vegas. You saw them calling him misogynistic. And, you know, if the least you could have done was come out and say, you know, all that is crap. How dare the liberals and people who call themselves progressive treat the one true liberal in this race like that? That would have been really helpful. It would have went a real long way, so we could have kept talking about those issues that she cared about instead of talking about all the bullshit that we ended up talking about, which is brandishing chairs and misogyny, and is it sexist, and is Bernie his taxes, and is he raging? Does he have an anger problem? He's curmudgeon-y, and all this other bullshit that we had to talk about instead of the issues, because that's what the Hillary Clinton people wanted us to talk about, because when we talk about the issues, we're done. Okay, and so if you really cared about those issues and you wanted us to have a strong debate about them, when we weren't having that debate, why don't you step in and do something? Because you have a responsibility, because you have power now. So now you actually do have responsibility to do something. And here's the nicest thing I can say. I'll say it this. So here's the way I will get through it is I will tell myself that Elizabeth Warren thought that she couldn't afford to marginalize herself in her first term as a senator. And if she did, she felt like she would be on the outside and she wouldn't be able to get any progressive things done if Bernie didn't win. And so she tried to save herself to be able to push her progressive agenda without ostracizing. So that's the best way I could look at it. And if that's really why she did it, then okay, I can get over it. But that answer she gave Rachel didn't say that. And that answer she gave Rachel was transparently bullshit. And so it's fucked up that even the most... someone who we look to be a truth teller in the Senate, to be liberal and progressive, isn't sometimes, and we see right through you. So it kind of makes us feel icky inside again. But I'm going to go with the best reading of it possible.
Super fast devil's advocate. I don't like this argument, but if you're trying to see her in a better light, considering what she's just done, if apparently this whole time she's been more of a pragmatist than we thought she was, and she was just waiting for Bernie Sanders to get through it so that she could endorse Hillary Clinton. She wants to work with Hillary Clinton. Maybe she wants to be the VP. She sees that as the way to get the progressive values done. If that's true, then she could have just endorsed Hillary during the primary. She could have gotten so many points from Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton's supporters and the rest of the establishment by supporting Hillary Clinton earlier on and giving her the credentials she has as a strong progressive to Hillary Clinton. But she didn't, and I'm sure there was a ridiculous amount of pressure on her. This is setting a very low bar, I understand that. But she could have done it, and it would have been the easiest thing. We've seen people in the media, people in politics, all lining up behind Hillary Clinton to make careers for themselves. And she didn't do that.
So
that's something, I guess.
I think both sides have very good points to make. So first off, for whatever reason, and no, not for whatever reason, for reasons that are borne out by her history, both outside of government and inside government, I do believe that she is a progressive at heart, a real progressive and not just a politician scheming for her own personal gain. I believe that she genuinely thought that the best way to keep progressive ideals alive was to make sure that there was a voice for progressives in the very likely event that Hillary Clinton won. That is the calculation that she made. Now, you could say, hey, I'm being overly generous to her or I'm being naive about it, and that is possible, but that's my sincere belief. On the other hand, boy, she could have made a big difference. So Bernie Sanders lost Massachusetts by 1.2%. I think any objective political analyst looks at that, says if Elizabeth Warren had endorsed him, he would have won. Now, he wouldn't have won Massachusetts by 20 points, but maybe he wins by 1 point or 2 points. But as a matter of optics, it mattered on that night. Massachusetts was a big, big state there. And when he lost Massachusetts, people were like, oh, he can't even win Massachusetts, and that's in the Northeast, and that's close to Vermont. Oh, he's done, right? Iowa, he only lost by 0.2. That was the first one. Could a powerful, progressive female senator on his side made him win Iowa by 0.2, and then every headline has to be he wins Iowa rather than loses Iowa.
Wins Iowa and New Hampshire back to back.
Boy, it would have made a big difference, right?
It would have.
So I actually think giving her the benefit of the doubt, which I genuinely believe, I think she miscalculated. And I don't mind a practical calculation. Look, we do a lot of practical calculations at Wolfpack, and we support people, and we have carrots, and we have sticks, and we go after people, and there's a lot of practical decisions that need to be made. But in that practical consideration, she thought he wasn't going to win. A lot of the progressive senators thought he's not going to win. I'm not going to put my neck out there. Yeah. So, but not just, again, not for just personal reasons, but I've got to protect this. But the reality is, if you all backed him, he might have won.
Yes.
He was really close. He might have won. Even before the California vote, it was still 54-46 in terms of pledged delegates. Damn it, it was close, and you could have made the difference. And so, to me, she plays like Robert the Bruce in Braveheart. Right? So Bernie's Braveheart. He's going after the lords. He's saying, freedom, right? And Robert the Bruce is unsure. And he's like, well, I could be with you, or I could be with the English, and I'm not really sure. And he sits out the battle, and he loses. Now, in that story, by the way, Robert the Bruce later says William Wallace was right, and he defeats the British. So don't give up on Robert the Bruce yet.
In 4 or 8 years, if Sanders comes up and says, you've bled with Sanders, now bleed with me, are people going to want to bleed with her?
So that's the miscalculation. And the final part of that for me is, if she had endorsed Bernie Sanders early on, it wouldn't have given her less power with the Hillary Clinton campaign. It actually would have given her more power. The reason is the Clinton campaign respects power. So if you bow to them, you lose that power rather than gain that power. So if she had said, I am for Bernie Sanders, I'm progressive, and we're going to go out there and fight, and at the end she said, okay, all right, Hillary, okay, I'll endorse you, then Hillary might have been like, meaning after the fight is over, right? Okay, fine, I'll give you the VP if you endorse me. I'll make sure, Elizabeth, that progressives have a real voice in my administration as long as you switch over at the end and come to my side. That would have been the better, more practical way, because then Bernie Sanders might have won, and even if he didn't, you actually would have had more power, not less power.
Yeah. That's a really interesting take on it. Yes. I think she thought she had leverage and has leverage within the future Clinton administration. She wanted to maintain that currency. I think you framed this perfectly. But the notion that she would have had more currency by offering her endorsement early on in the process to Bernie and then at the end, in a sense, conceding that Hillary had won. That's a fascinating take on it. I think she did all the calculations that you've talked about, and then she thought, because of my lack of endorsement, this is a hugely high-profile endorsement right now for Hillary Clinton, right? That's the reason we're talking about it. That's the reason it's been featured this way.
It's like on the level of Obama. Almost.
Exactly, exactly. And so she got that currency. I mean, this is a valued endorsement by the Clinton people. Having said that, it's a very intriguing notion, what Cenk's just said, that you could have had even more currency had you gone over and then come back. Wow.